Alright guys, thanks for putting up with me once again. I'm recording this wee prologue segment, if you like, the week after we did the interview, which has meant that invincible status that Gordon had technically is gone. However, it does remain in the league. Unfortunately, fell short to St Roch's in the cup. I'm sure he won't like me starting off in such negative terms. But look, listen, that doesn't take away from how good and how valuable this episode is going to be. Ultimately, we do go through the various ins and outs of quite an interesting wee career down in the lower leagues. However, for anybody that's maybe aspiring to get into coaching or would like to see themselves in his shoes one day, it's full of wee things that us supporters and us as onlookers don't quite see when it comes to the role of the manager. That being said, do enjoy it. Another thing as well, I did realise that my mic was a wee bit too far away from my mouth at certain points of it. Gordon's was definitely very, very, very close to his. However, I think I've managed to fix the audio a wee bit. If it sounds a wee bit dodgy at times, just excuse it. Just give me 3 strikes and we're out. Anyway, do enjoy it. It's Clydebank's very own Gordon Moffat. Listen, you can do anything you want when you've not lost a game yet. I want to ask Phil about that run, and I'm sure it's the question you get all the time. And I know the results are consistent, but in terms of performances, has it been fairly plain sailing? And that's not disrespectful to the rest of the league, but have you maybe had to ride your luck a couple of times and deservedly be come out on top?
Oh no, definitely. I think there's been a real mixed bag in there with the results. There's been games we've had to grind out. There's been games we've been excellent and quite dominant in most of the game. There's been a really mixed bag. Even go back to very early in the season. I think it was game 2, match day 2. I think it was shots away, and it was a real ground out performance. It was it was a really difficult game. John's team made it very hard for us, and we had to really hang in there towards the end and defend our box. So there's been a real mixed bag in there, as I said. Other performances, we've obviously in the cups we've scored 7. I don't know, maybe 3 times, 4 times now. So we've had some really good performances. A lot of clean sheets most recently. So I think we're 6 in a row now in clean sheets. So it's been a mixed bag. You're never going to get it. You're never going to get it all your own way, particularly in this league. So I've said that to players. You need to have a wee bit of resilience at periods in games. So and we've had that so far.
Is it true that John's team plays part of the bus football? Is that why he brought the lines in at Hannah Park? Is that true?
I shared your interview with John, that's right. No, listen, John and I got on really well. We bounce off each other a lot and going through the coaching badges and stuff. And what I'll say about John is, he's obviously a really experienced coach, a really good coach, and his teams are always really organised, regardless of where he's been. They're always really organised, and I said that to the boys that night when over the shot. Said like, this is going to be a tough game. We probably got, well, we did get our nose in front the second half, but we started to play a wee bit better. But then they got a goal towards the end that made it very difficult for us. A lot of sort of long throws, and as I said, you've got to defend your box, and it's just one of them. You're playing against so many different styles in this division now that you've got to sort of adapt week on week.
I actually want to ask you about that in terms of styles, and I was going to ask you about this later on because you were at Rossvale, and well, you were at the Rossvale, who are now the Caledonian Locomotives.
That's right.
They split away from what is now Rossvale.
Yep.
I see their manager on Twitter a lot because he plays very the way the football is meant to be played. I actually want to ask you about the styles in this league. Do you feel that there is a lot more possession-based sides, if you like, or is there still a lot of the old-fashioned up to the big man up top, or is it quite varied now?
I think as I said, I think it's a fair mix. Like in terms of our style, like we're a passing team, we're a possession-based team, but we also, we speak to players a lot about trying to play forward, trying to lift our head and play forward as soon as we can, basically. So sometimes that'll be your 10 passes across the bat, your midfield, and then your wide area to go for there. Other times, if there's a turnover of possession and we can get it in our wide guy in one pass, we'll look to do that. So we're quite aggressive in terms of our possession football. Other teams are a bit more build-up play. It's a bit more, it's a bit more patient, if you like. And as I said, we'll do that at times. Other times we'll try and go really aggressive. And then in our league, you still, you'll get teams that are going forward a wee bit earlier, a wee bit more direct. And I don't there's no right or wrong way to play the game. It's what sort of suits you in terms of your. I suppose it's what suits the manager in terms of beliefs, but also the group of players you've got at that time. Sometimes you've got a new manager going in having to adapt to what he's got at that particular time. So I've always been, since my Rossville days, I've always been, a passing team as such, but that can look like a few different things depending on the game plan. The Whitlett's game the other week was a good example where they had a very high line. So rather than, going 7-8 passes to progress, we were maybe going one and then clipping it in behind, going and getting on the ball for there. And either you're in for a shot or they're recovering and we're playing in their final third at least. So it just depends.
I've been listening to what's his name, PG's Real Football podcast. It just shows you that I've really caught the junior football bug. He was actually saying that about how, as much as you can pass the ball about, but actually when you need to, you do go long. We're almost on the spectrum then. Would you say that your coaching philosophy, if you like, falls in terms of you get part of the bus, Brexit, Sam Allardyce and Pep Guardiola, tiki-taka? What would you say on that sort of?
I would say we're quite high towards the passing end of that. I mean, everything
the far left, the radical left.
I mean, everything we do out there, obviously training night to night, is possession based. Is about moving the ball quickly, being able to receive the ball in tight spaces, getting like your Nicky Littles of the world, Nicky Lowe, Dean Cairns on the half turn and playing forward. Again, like if you were to come on like a Thursday, you'd see more, again, like attacking wide areas, getting the ball into final third, what we're doing for there. But I mean, we're very much a possession-based team. I want to have the ball, but as I've said, we can mix it up. Those passes, I think PG actually referenced that either this week or last week, that those passes can be a bit longer at times. You'll see maybe Simey hitting a diagonal into Lee Gallagher in the wide area and then getting the ball down, and then it's your 3-4 passes to get in behind. So it depends on what. I always look at what other teams are going to do, how they're going to shape up. But we speak about our core principles never change. We want to be aggressive in our attacking. We want to have the ball. We want to pass forward. We want to run forward. That's what we speak about all the time.
Yeah, I'm just going to further the Superman allegations that you have right now. I don't want to know what sort of suit is on below that gilet, but I quite enjoyed actually the National article that got written about you a few years ago. Gordon Moffat delivering on and off the pitch.
Oh yeah.
Listen, invincible record. You've knocked the Highland League champions at the Cup. You delivered your second child pretty much by yourself. Is there anything that you can't do at the moment, Gordon? David Gray, by the way, I hope you're listening to this one.
I mean, I know I was wondering where we were going with that article, but I remember it. It was it was the Elgin game, wasn't it? Was it just before? It would have been just before the Elgin game.
Aye.
And it was my second daughter was due, obviously, and I think when we had the BBC game here on the telly,
Aye.
I was getting interviewed by BBC after, and it dawned on me that we've now got a replay on Saturday, and that's my wife's due date, and I was all sorts going through my mind, but in the end up, in all seriousness, she said to me, "Look, you need to go. You need to go up and be there." Maybe if it'd been our first, she'd have looked at it slightly differently, but it was a bizarre time. But we obviously got through the tie, we got away with it, and I got home, and then bizarrely ended up delivering Millie in my own bedroom, just the way things happen so quickly. So it was a mad time, and then I think the paper came out and done a few pictures at the house and stuff. So it's those wee things I suppose the Scottish Cup brings. It's just the wee quirks, but it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was even the story, of course it was a bit more of an unfortunate one with it was Three Rovers, wasn't it, in Stranraer. They've got a player, he's got cancer, but he's still going on with it, do you know?
Yeah.
It's all these things, that the Scottish Cup brings out. And speaking of the Scottish Cup, of course, in light of recent events last night, it would be very rude not to ask what you make of that result. I'm sure it is a very jubilant time for the club. I mean, even listening here about the phone calls about have Hibs phoned you yet and all that. But as a manager, and if we strip back your role, it's pretty much to get the results of the team out there. If you strip it all back, as the manager, take out the boardroom want the payday and the fans want the nice away day, how do you really assess it then, going to Easter Road?
It's an interesting one. I think last night, I was saying that to somebody today. My wife's not really interested in football at all, but she got kind of sucked in last night with the draw, and she came down the stair when it was on, and she's on my case for pacing about the room. I was pacing up and down. I don't know why. I just felt really nervous watching it. just a wee bit surreal seeing us in the hat with the names we were in with. I think when Hibs came out, obviously the numbers were going down, and you're going, well, Rangers and Celtic are still in there. And when Hibs came out, I'd sort of say to the wife, that'd be a good one. And then obviously the 7 ball came out, and I think I nearly woke the kids up with my shout. But no, it is a wee bit surreal. But at the end of the day, it sort of dust settled today, and you're going, well, it's another game. It's another game. It's obviously an exciting game for the club. And as you heard, some of the toons and fro's today that are going on at training tonight with what we need to do. But really exciting for the club, really exciting for the fans. But for me and the players, I think what I would say first and foremost is we want to go over there and do ourselves justice. Do you know what I mean? We want to go over and show what we're about and what this level's about. We know that obviously Hibs are going to be massive favourites in every bookmakers and every article you read, which is absolutely fair. They're obviously playing in the top league in the country, so that's all fine, But I just want to make sure we prepare well, we're as professional as we can, and we go and represent our league, as best we can in our club. So.
Well, it's been a long time coming for the Clydebank supporters, isn't it? It's been a long time since they've had a team like Hibs. Well, you need to go back to the old Clydebank, don't you? But we'll get right into your story, Gordon. We'll shut up about recent events or recent news for now. We'd like to do it nice and easily, nice and chronologically. Take us back to the start. Who was the young Gordon Moffat? What was his football upbringing?
Well, for me, again, I've spoken about this fairly recently. I was on a radio thing, and it's quite. I said this at the time. It's quite hard to go back. I'm sounding like an old man, but I'm 42. But it's quite hard to go back and remember things. I think for me, I grew up in Dumfries, played boys club football. Kind of most young guys' stories at school, playing boys club football. Queen of South picked me up, but around about 11, and I was training with both, so my boys club and Queens. And then at 16, I signed my S form with Queens. So at the time, it's schoolboy form. You don't have them anymore. You've got pro youth now. But signed my schoolboy form with Queens, and that was me. Really, had to give up my boys club team and get embedded with Queen of South. And you start going into that kind of professional environment. You kind of see what football's all about at that point. Gary, my assistant, I'd be talking about all the time. Just things that happened at that point. Managers and players when they get away with now in terms of senior players and how they treated the younger ones and stuff. But it's good. It's all education and upbringing, and it's good to. I really value that time at Queens just as an environment. And I never got to the point of playing a first team game for Queens, but I played a lot in 18s and reserves, and you kind of get a lot of. There's a lot of things probably still in me for those days, if I'm honest.
You ended up then at Annan after that. Were they the ones that signed your professional contract, or have transfer market fed me?
Yeah, so at the time, Annan Athletic, they weren't a league team at that point. They hadn't made it into the league yet.
They were in the East of Scotland?
East of Scotland, yeah, okay. So East of Scotland. So they had 2 teams, Annan. So, if you look at the structure now of the pyramid, Annan had 1 team in what's the south of Scotland, which was a reserve team effectively. And then the first team played in East of Scotland, which was, at the time, a really, really good league. A really strong. You had like Spartans, Edinburgh City, Whitehill Welfare, ourselves, Civil Service, Gallifreydine. A lot of teams that are now either in the league or the Lowland League. It was a really strong league. So it was to go in and play first team football, and that was the reason I went to Annan, to play first team football at 19 in an environment like that. Again, it's a good grounding for you. It gives you a good sort of foundation. So it was good.
How then, can I paint a picture of the club at that point, of course, because we know them as an SPFL, they weren't even an SFL club at that point. How also was junior football at that point? Ultimately, you're in the West of Scotland League by now, but then how was the East of Scotland League at that time?
Well, with the juniors, as I said, I was born and raised in Dumfries, and then, as I said, Queen of South and then Annan. So I never really knew junior football in the Central Belt or the East. I never really knew much about that unless you'd play. With Annan, we played the odd friendly. I remember playing Maryhill once over at Maryhill, and you're going, wow, this is a good standard. And so we always kind of knew it was probably quite comparable at the top end. At that time, it was like, as I said, Maryhill were a top team, Pollard, Auchinleck, obviously, and we were like one of the top teams in the East of Scotland League, and it was probably on a par at that point. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know a huge amount about junior football, really, until much later in my career when I lived in Glasgow.
You came up to, was going to say he came up to Glasgow. People in Coatbridge might disagree with that. Ultimately, it's Lanarkshire, isn't it? You came up to Albion Rovers. Would that have been their 125th anniversary that year, if I've got my dates correct?
Aye, I think it was. I'm sure with the special badge and stuff. Aye,
Uh,
that's good research there. I remember there was someone with special strips. I'm sure we done a launch. So I ended up coming up to Albion Rovers. Kind of strange how it happened. I was struggling a bit. I'd moved to Glasgow with work,
right.
and I was still playing with Annan, and I was struggling a wee bit just with travel. To go down to Annan 3 times a week if it was a home game and your training included. I'd said to the Annan manager, like, I'm struggling a wee bit with this. Work was getting quite busy, and he says, look, I'll get you training up the road. At least one day a week. So he managed to get me in with Albion Rovers with Jim Chapman. I would do whatever, probably my Tuesday session with Albion Rovers, and then down the road on a Thursday, and then play with Annan the Saturday. And then it got to the end of that summer. I'd had a really good season for Annan. I was playing midfield at the time. I think I ended up top or second top goal scorer in the whole division, 26, 27 goals for midfield. And Chappie just kind of said to me, like, your contract's running out, don't sign another one, basically. I want to sign you here. So it was a bit of a no-brainer, to be honest with you. I lived in Denniston. Coatbridge was more or less on my doorstep with the motorway, so it was just the right call to move up.
So you were the Jude Bellingham of the east of Scotland. Then
I don't know about that. I don't know if you would like that comparison, but listen, I was at that time. I was a goal scorer. I was a lot of time. I wasn't involved in too much of build-up play quite often. I'd sort of drift and then hit the box late and arrive kind of in the right time, and I would manage to get quite a lot of goals. So. But then Chappie signed me and put me right back, so that was the end of that.
Did you play an awful lot though at Albion Rovers, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of data on it online?
I was only there one season, but I played. I probably started. I would say probably started 78% of the games.
Right, okay.
I wasn't in the team at the very start, and we had quite a poor start that season, and then we played Partick Thistle at Firhill. Was my debut basically in senior football, so I watched the first couple of league games and I'm getting a wee grasp on the standard and just different, in terms of tempo, physicality was a wee bit different. And we didn't have a great start, as I say. I think we lost the first maybe 2 or first 3, and then we had I think it was the CIS Cup, so it'd be a League Cup, kind of what's the Betfred now. Partick Thistle at Firhill, who were what's now a championship level team. Well, they still are, obviously. They were at that level, and I got chucked in at right back, and I had a great game, to be honest, that night. And then I just sort of stayed in the team after that. So it was a kind of baptism of fire. We ended up beating Thistle. I think it was 2-1, which was a real upset at the time. They had some top players. Simon Donnelly, who's now on Clydebank, was kind of one of their main men. Had come down the levels with Celtic and stuff. So it was tough. It was a tough game, and it was a wee bit of a wow moment for me, like seeing just the difference in movement and how guys move at that level. I speak to our players about that all the time, just that difference you'll get in terms of movement when you move up the levels, short to go long. And that was a bit like, well, I hadn't seen that before. I thought I'd played at a good level, and then you see that and you're like, I've got a wee bit to go here. So
yeah, it's actually interesting because Stuart Hunter at Bo'ness mentioned that when I spoke to him. God, I mean, it's actually just past the year's anniversary of doing my first one with David Proctor. Unfortunately, he's not in the job anymore at Cumbernauld. And I asked him about playing like Celtic B and Hearts B, and like what's the difference between these kids versus you fully grown professionals. And he said they just seem to move that wee half second quicker. Their minds work a wee half second quicker. It's just.
Yeah,
they're ahead, but that's ultimately because they're playing football 5 days a week, and
so you'll hear
a couple of times a week, don't you?
You'll hear a lot of buzzwords now. If you follow any accounts on Twitter and stuff, you'll see a lot about football IQ and all that sort of stuff, and that's what it is. That's essentially what it is. It's especially these young lads that come through the academies at the top level. Your Celtic and Rangers sort of academies, guys that are coming through there. It's very different, and they're obviously taught very well. They're possession based, but they're also taught about, scanning, checking their shoulders, body shape from a very early age. Mm-hmm. And for me, again, I reference that with our players. I probably never started to learn about body shape and how to receive the ball, and probably till I was in my mid-20s, because I'd been at a level where you could kind of get away with certain things. It was when I went to SPFL level, you're going, you don't get away with that. If you're not shaped and you don't take your first touch to the right side or make the pass to the safe side, you're losing the ball.
42-degree angle and all that.
It is just different. You know, there's wee differences as you go up. And I'm sure, again, I was never good enough to go to sort of full-time level, but I'm sure if you jump again, you'd see that again. So it's just those wee differences that as you go through the levels.
Talk to me about East Stirling. It's a club I've been looking to talk about for a wee while, because Pat Scullion was a lovely guy. Even the fans on Twitter were dead nice to me, so I've got to give them a massive shout out for that. Were you there the season that they played their last game at First Park? And then
I was.
Were you there? So would that also mean that you were there when they get into a bit of a dispute? Did they know because of their membership? Because
so there was a huge
2 years in a row or something.
There was a huge carry on with that, and there was also a huge carry on with the pitch and where we're leaving, where we know. I went to. I didn't want to leave Albion Rovers. First of all, to say that, but Chappie ended up leaving the club out the blue when he'd offered 7 or 8 of us a new contract, and I was happy to stay. And then next minute he wasn't going to be the manager all of a sudden, and I was like, I've not got a good feeling about what's happening here, and I ended up leaving the club. And Wildy, Gordon Wild, came in because I think I'd played really well against East Stirling the last game of that season. Obviously, play everybody 4 times, so you get to know guys. You get to know the other teams pretty well. And the 4th time we'd played East Stirling that season, I'd done really well. Which wasn't like me, to be fair, but I'd done really well at right back, and where they phoned me says, listen, if you've not signed in, come and speak to us. And I went in there with Wildy, and then the investment came in East Stirling. They'd made a real push, so they went for that. There was always that story, this sort of perennial bottom of the league team, and they were paying a £10 a week. It was a tenner a week and all that. The season I went, I ended up on more money than I was at Albion Rovers. They gave us more money to go there, and I was like, listen, what's happening here? It looks a good move. They were signing players from way up the levels. They'd invested a bit of money. Spencer Fernand came in, who was, a really, really good guy. Spencer, still have him on Facebook at the time. I think don't quote me on it, but I think he owned like a record company or something. And he owned a couple of businesses. He was an entrepreneur. Really, really nice guy. He's a Sheffield Wednesday fan, and he came in and sort of invested in the club. So we were getting players from Championship and League One, and I got a chance to go, and I was like, let's go. And the club was brilliant. I loved my time at East Stirling. Really nice people, right through the club. Jimmy and Robert, the kit men, like amazing guys. Just really nice guys. And I think Robert's now, is he the chairman, or he's quite high up in the club, Robert. Jimmy unfortunately passed away, but 2 of them were like a double act, amazing guys. After training, they'd look after us with tea and toast and all that, and all the way up to boardroom level. It was just a really good club, really. So I just kind of like Clydebank, I would say, like that kind of family feel about it. So I loved my time there, and it was some amazing stuff went on, because of that investment, and we'd been that underdog thing for so long. We went on a good run of winning games, or unbeaten. We went on quite a long run, and then Sky Sports done the wee documentary, came to the ground and all that, and it was good. It was a really interesting season. Then Jim McInally came in, so he kind of kicked them on again. So
Sheffield Wednesday could have used an owner like that. No, a few years couldn't they? But I love hearing about that though. Like, even just the wee conversations there that you had with the manager before you even went. These are the things that in my generation we've grown up playing FIFA career mode, where it's just put the digits in and that's it done. But actually, it humanises the game a wee bit. But also, I can expect that for Stirling, that is a nice wee feel, because they're interesting, because you look at your sort of big team and small teams in the same cities. You've got your Hearts and Hibs, and then Edinburgh City, or you've got your Partick Thistles to Celtic and Rangers. You've got East Stirling to Falkirk. It's not even like a big city. Like, it's a town, or don't know what they call it.
Yeah.
But, that's interesting. But and then this geographically is Clydebank, isn't it? Because obviously I got off the train at Yoker there. I don't want to get in any
we'll folk debate that this is actually Yoker and Clydebank's
because we
further,
are
but
at the original home of Yoker Athletic, aren't we? So, but we'll not get into that. We're not a geopolitics podcast, unfortunately. You played for what three teams in about 3 years now, and you were in your sort of like early to mid-20s, and I've asked a few other guys about this. Johnny Stewart at Trinent was quite funny about it because he said actually um, when he'd get let go for Hearts, he didn't actually really know what to do with himself because he hadn't really lived outside of that. So
Yeah.
then from your perspective now that you'd left your third team in about 3 years or so, were you sort of eager to maybe get settled down at a team, or were you just alright, just playing for as many as
I think because that wee period was probably a bit odd for me in my career because I'd been at Queen's, albeit coming through, it would now be classed pro youth, but it was kind of the academy at the time. I'd been at Queen's, as I said, for 11, 12 to like 18, 19. You know, so I'd been there such a long time. Then I was at Annan for, I think, 5 seasons. So I'd always been really, really settled. And then to jump, you know, to go to Albion Rovers and be there 1 season, things to no end the way I wanted, was a wee bit bizarre. And then I went to East Stirling, as I said. The second season, East Stirling, Jim McInally came in. You know, he came in from Morton, signing players again for up the levels. There was even more money invested, and I thought, there's no way I'm going to get signed here. And Jim actually kept me. But it's kind of when you get into that following season, you get that vibe. You'd be kept as a bit of a squad player. I was in and out, and as you said, the age I was getting to, whatever it was at the time, you know, later in my 20s, mid to late 20s, I just felt like I really need to be playing here now. And that was how I ended up at Glenafton. And referencing back what we were speaking about before, that was my first taste of junior football as it was at the time. And it, you know, I've spoke about it in a few things now. Like, it's probably one decision I was a wee bit regretful over. I probably jumped too early. You know, I should have probably waited that out and listened to Jim a wee bit more and just sat it out a wee bit more, because I ended up in the playoffs that season. But effectively, I spat the dummy at getting left at a team Monday and left. So, it's probably the one wee thing that I'm like, maybe I should have sat that one out. But listen, you can't dwell on things too much.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I was about to ask. Like, you know, was it an easy decision both personally and professionally though? But I suppose ultimately, it's not as if you were going from, like, you know, getting paid thousands and thousands a week to straight into junior football or anything. But
Yeah.
you ended up then, and you could say it's a fair junior football and hotbed, couldn't you? Down in Ayrshire, you've got a number of teams that are very much right up against each other. Was there any memorable moments from ties there at all?
Loads. Loads. I mean, at Glenafton, one of my first games was Irvine Meadow at home. They were sort of the high flying team at that time. They'd obviously had a lot of investment, and they had top players. Do you know what I mean? They'd like, you know, Andy McLaren was there, so I think I played right back my first game directly against Andy McLaren, who'd obviously played with Kelly and several other teams at the top level. So straight away you're going, this is a seriously good level. You know, it wasn't like a drop down as such in terms of quality. So you're playing against good teams. You know, the venues were obviously different for me. A lot of venues I'd never been at, the junior grounds, but so many good grounds. You know, when you're starting to go to places like Meadow and Talbot and Pollock, you know, you're like, this is good. You know, I was enjoying it, and a lot of big games. You know, the Glenafton, obviously, the Cumnock games and the Auchinleck games were the big ones. You know, probably my first game at Talbot, you're going, wow, what's going on here? You know, you're getting quite a bit of abuse and stuff chucked at you and all that. And again, it was just I enjoyed it. You know, it was brilliant. The atmospheres were amazing.
Proper football, aye.
Was proper at that time.
I was actually going to ask that because I wasn't sure, because Glenafton is New Cumnock, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if that then constituted to a sort of Cumnock derby, or like we all can, like, but I suppose it's like a wee holy trinity, that wee area, isn't it? But
It's it is those sort of 3 games, and again at that time you'd play a couple of those games in the section. It was a sectional cup, so it was the local teams as well. So you were getting to see each other plenty, and they were always good games. Both the Cumnock and the Auchinleck games were brilliant atmospheres, regardless of who was hosting. So it was good.
Yeah, I'd say those sort of fixtures are the ones that are actually very well covered, because you've got your Footy Adventures, for example, and Blair McNally as well. They seem to really revel in those sort of fixtures. After that, you'd end up in fairly familiar settings, wouldn't you? You'd end up at Clydebank. It was so good the first time that you had to come back this time, but as a manager.
Aye, well, I think when I left Glenafton, I'd been at Glenafton quite a while. I was there sort of about 18 months, and during the second season again, it was like the commute. Well, you see the night we try to go over here in time to meet you. It was a struggle. So at the time, again, as I said, I was living in Denniston to get down. I think we were training at Kilmarnock maybe at the time, and getting across that M77, especially in the winter months, it becomes difficult. And I just had an open chat with the manager at the time. I just said, look, I'd like to try and get back a bit close at home if I can. I wasn't in any rush to leave. Again, Glenafton, brilliant club, brilliant people. But I just thought if I could get the opportunity to come back up close at home, that'd be good. And the chance came in to do a bit of training with Clydebank, so I came up, and then I think I'd played a couple of pre-season games. And I think from memory I was still attached to Glenafton, but they let me do that. I played against Dumbarton in a pre-season friendly and had done really well. And Budgie just said, look, want to try and get something done. So they got to an agreement with Glenafton, and I came up. And at the time, Clydebank had next to no budget really. I came up, the money I was on at Glenafton was, pretty good to come to Clydebank at next to nothing really. But it wasn't really about money for me at that point. I just wanted to be close to home, enjoy it. And again, I probably never fully knew what I was coming into till I probably played my first few competitive games, and you see the crowd and the demands and that, and I'm like, wow, it's proper football club, and love my time playing here. Absolutely loved it.
I was going to actually ask about sort of behind the scenes at the club, because ultimately this is a fairly sleeping giant given the history of the club and where they were not that long ago. I'm sure it feels like an age for the supporters, right enough. But how was probably the running of the club back then, like compared to it is now? And did you almost feel that maybe heightened expectation because of the crowds and because of where they were wanting to get back to?
Yeah, I mean, the run of the club was, very similar. It was well organised, good structure. Again, the board were all fans. So it's the same model that is now. It's fan owned. Just a different group of people. Obviously now we've got Grace, who's absolutely fantastic. At the time, Grace was a fan, and on the terraces quite a lot, and maybe doing bits and pieces. But no, the club was ran really well. It was just, that really the sort of revenue wasn't really there at that time. They didn't have a lot of money, but you could see they were obviously building something. I'd come in at a point where they were one league below where we currently are now, so they were on their way back. They'd come through a few promotions with Budgie and done really well. So I was kind of joining the journey at the end, if you like. And
Yeah.
when I went in, we got promotion to the Premier League, and then had stayed there. So you were joining that journey a bit late. You just felt such a part of it, and you could, again, probably it was only a handful of games in, and I'm like, you feel part of it already. And as I said, the fans start to take to me a wee bit, and it just snowballed for there. And then, as I said, we got the promotion. We ended up becoming like a top four team in the Premier League at that time with no great budget at all, which was, again, probably testament to Budgie and the players he'd got in. He recruited really well for like the 21s market at the time, and picked up maybe guys who were leaving better clubs, maybe coming down the way, and he chose wisely one or two for amateur football like Daz McKinnon. So he recruited really well, and we ended up building a really strong team and doing well in the Premier League, and obviously won a couple of cups and stuff. So it was good.
Where did your sort of coaching journey begin? Was it here or was it at Kirkintilloch or was it even after that?
No, it was at Rob Roy. So yeah, I'd left Clydebank, and really kind of got wrenching to leave the club. Really never wanted to leave, but had a bit of a chat with Budgie, and he was wanting to kind of go down, bringing a bit more legs and youth into certain areas of the pitch, and kind of painting the picture I might not play as much, and so I was a bit disappointed in that, if I'm honest. But at the end of the day, that's football. I know now that those aren't easy conversations. I've had to do those conversations, and they're really no easy. But I decided to leave, and the chance to come up to go to Rob Roy, and Stuart Maxwell took me there, and he says, "Listen, come in here." I had a few different options, and he was like, "Come here, make you captain," and all the rest of it. So I went over there. It was quite a brand new team they were building, and I went in, and that was all really good. Had a really good pre-season. I remember feeling like really fit, like really back to maybe my mid-20s in terms of my fitness and my sharpness, and I was really looking forward to the season. And then the first league game of that season was Largs away, and that was the day I popped my eye, detached my retina, burst my eye socket, and that was pretty much the end of my career. Although I recovered from that, got all my sight and that back, which was obviously the main thing. I recovered and finished the season, but I was never quite the same. I could feel my commitment. I was like, the surgeon had kind of said to me, "You do not want to take another hit in that same space." And I just felt I wasn't the same. And I'd said to Maxie, "Listen, when this season finishes, that's going to be me." And didn't really know what I was doing. And to be fair to Maxie, instantly said, "Look, come and be the first team coach." So that was kind of how it started.
And then, as we said, ended up at Rossville, which is now the Caledonian Locomotives. I could not tell you what was it? Do you know what went on there? Then was it the reserve team broke away for the first team?
No, so essentially it was Rossville when I went to manage. They were kind of separate from Rossville Academy, but had an affiliation, and we sort of built that relationship up, and then I believe they just decided to go their separate ways. After I'd left, Rossville went back to being Rossville Academy and went away, and had decided to have their own first team. So the Rossville that I knew obviously had to rebrand effectively. So I don't think it was anything too sinister. They just decided to go their separate ways. So it meant that there was two teams rather than one.
I take it these planes flying overhead does that add to the atmosphere in here at all?
It's one of my bugbears, Charlie. When I'm maybe doing a drill and I'm coaching, and then I'll be midway through an explanation, and everybody's just got to pause. The players now know why I'm making that pause. I'll look and I'll just say we'll let it go over, and then I'll continue where I left off. So,
how different then? I know obviously you've picked up much more experience. You've been here for a wee while now. How long is that, Liz, that you've been here again? It's
5 years in September I was. Yeah.
Well, how different though do you think you were then for your Rossville days to essentially the manager that finished up there against Bucky at the weekend?
I think, as I said at the start, like in terms of how I see the game and how I want to play the game, I've not changed at all. I want to, as I said, want to be on the ball, want our guys to pass it, I want our guys to entertain. Any fans that come and watch us. So that's not really changed. I've always had that. The flip side of that, I've always had a real foundation around the defensive side, not conceding goals and trying to build on that as well. So I don't think that's really changed. But I think as a manager, obviously you mature a wee bit. You start to understand things a wee bit well. You start to know how to pick up on different situations. Even just maybe picking up on a player's body language and realising he's not quite right tonight, having a wee chat with him. Things like that. Maybe in the early days you're a bit tunnel vision of, if I'm honest, you're going in terrified in your first manager's job going, I need to get this right. I hope the guys don't think I'm an idiot. I hope they know what I'm talking about. So it's daunting. It's I say that to people all the time, Charlie. It's see to stand up in front of 22 guys and actually make a team talk and make a speech and get a point across. That's quite a daunting thing as well. So all of that's new. Now I wouldn't really even bat an eyelid with that. It's just quite a natural thing for me. But so all of that kind of just comes gradually, and then all the other wee bits that go with it, around how to go about recruiting a player, how to negotiate a deal, all that stuff's just stuff you'll have to pick up. So that's the things I would say will have changed, but football side, not at all really.
Yeah, see, I think it's quite interesting, and maybe you can give me a different perspective on it. I think, just based off your guys on Twitter that you see, giving you the breakdown of how Mo Salah tore apart the Man City backline last week, and all your tacticals and statos and all that on Twitter. Do you think maybe sometimes the role of the manager and how you get critiqued is moving a wee bit away from the core? You're ultimately there to manage a group of people, and does the tactician maybe come second to that, or do you think we're focusing too much on the way that people play and not so much actually your ability to manage people?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I think it's all part of the package. You've got to be able to do it all, and a couple of guys, ex-players and stuff, have reached out to me for advice in the fairly recent past. Around, do you think I should give it a go? And it depends what you want to do. Some guys are comfortable coaching and that's what they want to do, but they're maybe not comfortable with the people management, you said, the man management, because you've got all sorts of stuff going on all the time. It's the same as, I manage people in my work, in my business. It's the exact same. You've got people with personal stuff going on in your life. You've got people that are maybe personally struggling themselves, or they've got worries or whatever, concerns, family members ill, all that stuff you've got to be able to deal with, and be sort of personable and be approachable for that. But like you said, the tactical side, the analysis, the looking ahead, looking at past opponents, looking at future opponents, you've got to do all of that. And obviously we've got a really strong team here. The team, my guys I've got around me, I couldn't do this job with them. You need guys that you trust. Obviously, Gary, my assistant's my best mate, but then so I've known him a long time. We've spoke about doing this since the Annan days, playing together. But I've got Kirk, I've got Phil, I've got Drew, we've now got JD in the mix. You need a group of guys that are going to understand what you want to get across, but help you as well. Sometimes I'm struggling with something, and I'll go to those guys and say, listen, I'm really, might be a pick in the team, it might be something, a wee bit of advice on a player, he's done this, what do you think? You need to be able to bounce off, and I think you need all of that. It's such a rounded job, and it's not for everybody. I know guys that have went in, and I know guys I've chatted to have tried it and went, don't know how you do it, Moff. Like, it's just not for everybody, and sometimes it's quite a lonely place as well. Like, when you're on a run of defeats or whatever, you sit and go, is this for me? Am I not doing it right? You question a lot, but obviously, like when you're on runs like we are just now, that's the flip side of it. That's your reward for, I suppose, the hard work. We've no lost a game of football of any description since May. That'll probably never happen again in my career. So I try to enjoy that, but at the same time, there's that fear of going that defeat's going to come at some point. And it's that motivates me to go, well, let's not make it this week.
Let's not make it Hibs away either.
Exactly.
But I do want to ask you, like you've had a couple of fourth place finishes in the past couple of years. What has been so different about this season? Like, how have you done it?
Well, I think I always say, when Grace and I chat as well, we chat about progression, right? So I understand that, like, maybe guys like yourself or fans are going to look and go, well, you were fourth, and then you were fourth again. For me, I look to see, is anything improving? In my opinion, are the metrics improving? Are the facts improving? That's what it's about for me. So there's loads of things within there: goals conceded, goals scored, all the rest of it, home wins, away wins. But so we look at all of that. We're quite big on stats and the data and what does it all tell us. We've got a bit of a database on pretty much everything you can imagine about this football club and the team. But the simple one to probably talk about is, like, well, 2 years ago, Beath were the champions, ran away with it. Brilliant team Straney had. We finished 14 points behind them, and you just look at that and go, well, you're where you are, whether you're fourth, second. To me, coming from Rossvale, where I was used to winning, we won the league title, we won a promotion, force of disappointment for me, so last year we wanted to improve on that. Now we finished fourth again, and they end up, in the last day of the season, we're sitting runner up. We lose 2-1 at Pollock, suddenly finish fourth from goal difference, and I don't think the players deserved that for this season. But the key thing for me is we'd closed that gap. It was 6 points behind Beath this time, and so maybe that's a wee bit naive of me, but I look at it and go, well, we did something right. We got a wee bit closer. Again, Beath were a fantastic team again last year, but we closed that gap to 6 points. You're going, we're getting there. We're getting a wee bit closer. And then we go into this year. We've done nothing really. We've 9 games in. We've had a great start. We're the ones that are getting chased just now, but it just takes a bad run, and you might be sitting third, in February, whatever it is. So I can't really say too much in this season yet. We've had a brilliant start. The boys have been phenomenal, but we've played 9 games. So there's 21 really tough games to come. All 9 of those games have had their own challenge. So we just need to try and tick it one off at a time and see where we end, and that might be top of the pile if we're lucky enough to do that. It might be fourth again, and I'm 2 points behind the lead or something. You just don't know, and I suppose that's the beauty of football. It keeps you on your toes every week. So we'll see how it goes.
We'll just try and not manifest that, but I mean, listen, you've got a 60% odd win rate at the club. I mean, it can only get higher from here, can't it? But I'll get you to this training session, mate, because as I said, we're a wee bit behind your schedule here. However, I like to ask everybody the kind of same question, and it's, let's say we come back in a year, 9 games in. Of course, you're in the Lowland League by that point, and I say, Moff, have you done a good job? And you say, Charlie, I've done a good job, and I ask you why. So, in a year's time, what is a good job done for you?
Again, probably a boring answer, but just what I've just said in terms of progress again. You know, see some sort of progression. I think even looking at the cup tournaments this year, you know, again, the time we're sitting chatting here now, obviously the draw was yesterday. We've drawn Hibs in the 4th round of the Scottish Cup. That's another wee bit of progression. Do you know what I mean? In terms of we've never achieved something like that before. You know, so the cups are important as well. You know, we've been 2 years ago, we got to a final, but we never won it. So to me, I'm like, write that off. I'm here to win things. So I think for me, I'm desperate to win something for this club and for the fans. You know, and probably particularly Grace. You know, the relationship her and I have had since we came in, and we've built it gradually together. We spoke about what progression looks like. We spoke about trying to get, you know, a bit more investment, a bit more budget, and Grace's done a phenomenal job in growing that just slightly every year. And I know that there's obviously a lot of chat. We've spent a bit of money this year, but what we've done is Grace ring fenced some money for some transfer fees, kept the wage structure pretty much as is. We told guys, if you know, we paid a bit of money in transfer fees, you need to come in on this wage structure. And we've tried to do it sort of a bit more organically like that. There's no denying we spent a bit of money, but it's money we've earned. You know, it's money that Grace has ring fenced and slowly been putting away. And again, the Scottish Cup, there'll be a wee bit of money comes from that. And again, it's probably if I'm honest with you, it's probably not the pot of gold people think, you know, but it's decent amounts of money, and I'm sure again Grace is really, really astute. She'll put a wee bit of that again, hopefully for me to go and spend again, and then we'll try and build and move forward again.
That's actually something that they spoke about on PGs, is that ultimately you have spent money, but do we want investment at this level of football? Do you know, do we want a good bit of money in it? Absolutely. So who are we all to moan? But anyway, as I say, I really hope David Gray's been listening to this. I do have to thank John from Shots, of course, for getting this one set up as well. He put me through to you. So, but
no problem.
It's been a delight to come out here to what a kind of region like this. This isn't Renfrewshire, is it? No, that's the other side of the river.
Western Bartonshire.
I do apologise. Western Bartonshire, not East Renfrewshire. Anyway, Gordon, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks
Pleasure.
very much,
Cheers,
mate.
Sally. Cheers.